What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome to another episode of Premier League Roundup, this one for week 6. We're going to do things a little bit differently today. We're going to go over the fixtures and every single result, but we're going to do it a little bit quicker, and then at the end of all the results, we'll go over the main talking points from the weekend. I will put a link in the description, so if you want to just hear the main talking points, the main drama from the weekend, you can click there, but if not, let's move on to the results. We'll kick things off here at St. Mary's Stadium, in which Southampton were taking on Bournemouth. Things kicked off really early in the 10th minute in this one, with Nathan Ake scoring off of a corner kick. Harry Wilson then put Bournemouth up 2-0 in the 35th minute, thanks to some great team play down the wing and a brilliant finish from Harry into the bottom right corner. In the 53rd minute, right after halftime, Southampton won themselves a penalty shot, and it was taken wonderfully by James Ward-Prowse. Then in the 95th minute, to put the game away, there was some absolutely terrible communication from Bednarek and Angus Gunn at the back. They collide with each other, allowing Callum Wilson to go and run the ball into the open goal. This one ends 3-1 to Bournemouth. Let's move now to Turf Moor, where Burnley were taking on the likes of Norwich. Norwich coming off that 3-2 victory over Manchester City. The scoring started and ended very early in this one, with Chris Wood bagging 2 goals inside the first 15 minutes. The first goal was off a corner kick, in which I thought was absolutely terrible defending from Norwich. On a corner kick, you usually have someone on the close post or just outside it near the 6-yard box to stop a low, hard corner coming in. There was no one there to stop it, and Chris Wood made a front post run and directed his header into the top corner. Norwich did have a few chances to get back into this game, but ultimately could not finish them off. Overall, it wasn't Norwich's best performance of the season, and they take the loss to Burnley 2-0. We move now to Goodison Park, where Everton were taking on Sheffield United. Now, I think Sheffield United have been a very good team so far this year. They look a very organized side and are just solid all around. In this game, however, Everton did create the majority of the chances. The story of this game was Everton's inability to find the back of the net and the goalkeeping mistakes by Jordan Pickford. Sheffield's first goal comes off of a corner kick that's whipped into the 6-yard box. Jordan Pickford comes to punch and isn't strong enough to push through the Sheffield United player that is blocking his way. The ball hits Yuri Mina and goes into the back of the net. There were claims of a foul on this one, but honestly, I don't think that the Sheffield United player jumped into Pickford. He looked like he was going for the ball. Pickford came and missed the punch. The second goal was a fantastic through ball by Lundstrom through to Musset, who slid it through the legs of the oncoming Jordan Pickford. Now, the mistake here, I think, from Jordan Pickford is that Musset did not have a very good angle on goal, and I think that if Jordan Pickford just stayed closer to his line, he would have been able to save any shot that Musset would have mustered up. The score in this one ends 2-0 to Sheffield United, as Everton's woes this season continue, unable to find consistent form. Let's head down to St. James Park, where Newcastle were taking on Brighton. There weren't much positives to come from this game, and there wasn't much from a neutral point of view as well, other than if you look at Brighton's new style of play, they look like they're attacking a lot more. It's really exciting to see, and I hope we see more of this to come in the next few games. This game ended in a 0-0 draw, and one of the main talking points of this game is it's fantastic to see Andy Carroll back in a Newcastle kit on the pitch. I think that he can actually make a difference in this side, use some of his experience and his knowledge, and I think it would be good for the morale of this squad. We move on to a couple very interesting games now, and we'll start it off here at the Etihad. This game was an absolute thrashing from Manchester City, and Watford could simply not get in the game. Man City scored 5 goals in the first 18 minutes, although it is worth noting that 4 of those 5 goals were actually from set pieces and were not from open play. After Man City scored the first goal, I thought that Watford looked the more likely to score the second goal. Deulofeu came in one-on-one against Otamendi and had a great chance to put them level at 1-1, but the momentum was taken away after Ben Foster gave away in what I would like to call a stupid penalty shot. He came out and made a tackle that was not really needed, as the Man City player was not going towards goal. This put Man City up 2-0 very early in the game, and I think this is the moment that really turned the tables and allowed Man City to just keep firing at Watford. After they put 5 past them in the first 18 minutes, they then go to score 3 more in the second half to really put salt in the wounds of Watford. This was a very sloppy performance from Watford. I think a lot of it was to do with their midfield not closing down the likes of Bernardo Silva and Kevin De Bruyne very well, allowing them to create and to score goals. We moved out of King Power Stadium where Leicester were taking on Tottenham. Now this is a very interesting matchup because you wouldn't say that Tottenham are really in form, but it looks like Leicester are on the come up this season. This is a very entertaining game that saw multiple chances from both sides. I would say Leicester probably getting the better of them. Harry Kane opened the scoring in the 29th minute. A wonderful backheeled pass from Son Heung-min on the counter attack, and as Harry Kane is getting pushed down, he puts one into the top corner. Very cool and collected from Harry Kane, and he was able to keep his balance to be able to put in that strike into the top corner. Leicester come back in the 70th minute with a nicely worked goal that is finished off by Ricardo. And then the heroics of young James Maddison having a wonderful strike into the bottom left corner from approximately 25 yards out. You could argue this should have been saved by the goalkeeper, but a wonderful strike at that. This saves the game for Leicester, and they finish with a 2-1 victory. Let's move on now to our Super Sunday matches, and let's start off here at the London Stadium where West Ham were taking on Manchester United. Overall, it was a very solid performance from West Ham, and again, not a very good performance from Manchester United. West Ham scored right at the end of the first half with a nicely worked team goal from Mark Noble and Felipe Anderson, with Yarmolenko to finish it off. United did create a couple chances, but in the end it wasn't enough, and Aaron Cresswell finished off the game with an absolute dream of a free kick into the top right corner as the game ends 2-0 to West Ham. Now at Selhurst Park, Crystal Palace were taking on Wolverhampton Wolves, who are looking to get their first win of the season. Not too much to talk about in the first half, but as we kick off the second half, Crystal Palace opened the scoring. A strike from the top of the box from Joel Ward is deflected and goes into the back of the net. Soon after, 2 silly fouls from Romain Saiss on Wilfried Zaha send him off with 2 yellow cards, which really ruined Wolves' hope in this one. But after Crystal Palace missed 2 very glorious chances, Wolverhampton shows some great character, and Adama Traore puts in a cross for Diogo Jota, who puts the ball in the back of the net in the 95th minute to tie the game up at 1-1. The missed chances for Crystal Palace was really the story of this one, as they should have put the game away, but the score ends up 1-1. Heading to the Emirates Stadium, Arsenal were taking on Aston Villa. Now Aston Villa came out flying, and they scored an early goal from John McGinn. And then what didn't help was Maitland-Niles receiving a second yellow in just the 41st minute of the game. A very large talking point, as by many they were considered questionable yellow cards, and things were looking grim for Arsenal at halftime. In the 59th minute, a penalty is won by Matteo Guendouzi, and it is slotted in the back of the net by Nicolas Pepe. But just 90 seconds later, Aston Villa come back. A great run by Jack Grealish finished off at the top of the 6-yard box by Wesley. Many thought that Arsenal were down and out, but back comes Callum Chambers, and he puts one into the top corner. Honestly, one of the most unlikely scorers that we ever could have expected, but he ties the game up at 2-2. And then off of a free kick in the 84th minute, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang wins the game for Arsenal. The score in this one ends 3-2. For our last game of the weekend, we head to Stamford Bridge in a peach of a match where Chelsea were taking on Liverpool. Alexander-Arnold opens the scoring off of a wonderfully worked free kick from Liverpool and a brilliant strike into the top right corner. Roberto Firmino then doubles their lead in the 30th minute, heading home across off of a free kick. Chelsea came out in the front foot in the second half, really took the game to Liverpool, and N'Golo Kanté scored a wonderful solo goal in the 71st minute that gave Chelsea hope in this game. Then Chelsea had 2 great chances at the end of the game that were not finished off, as Liverpool keep their unbeaten streak to 15 games as they win this one 2-1. Let's move on to some of the major talking points of this weekend. And as our first talking point, I'd like to go a little bit over the VAR decisions, because there were a lot of them that were very decisive this weekend. Now, if we move back to the Chelsea versus Liverpool game, there was an offside that was called in the first half after Azpilicueta seems to have tied up the game at 1-1 for Chelsea. It was called offside on Mason Mount, as the offside was called actually approximately 30 seconds before the ball was even put into the back of the net. Now the ruling on this one is that since Liverpool were unable to win back possession of the ball in this phase of play, Chelsea kept the ball the whole time and continued their attack, and it still ended up leading to the goal, so it was called back on offside for that purpose. This would have changed the whole dynamic to the game, as Chelsea would have tied the game in the first half, which would have led to a very interesting second half. The second VAR intervention we're going to look at here is the Serge Aurier goal in the Leicester-Tottenham game. Now there was the goal from Ndidi that was called back offside in the first half, but this was a clear offside decision from VAR. Now the one by Serge Aurier I have a little bit of a problem with, and the offside was called against Son, who was put through before Serge Aurier scored the goal. Now the reason I have an issue with this is because it was so close to being onside. It was honestly probably like 3 millimeters. Obviously VAR is great, but obviously VAR is not perfect. And in this situation where it's so tight where it almost doesn't even matter, I really believe that the benefit of the doubt should be given to the attacker. Also, one more thing that I'd like to point out is, how do we decide the exact fraction of a moment in which the player releases the ball from his foot? And what I mean by this is, when a player is playing a pass through to someone who is potentially offside, how can we determine the exact moment when the ball leaves his foot to judge whether the player running on behind the defensive line is actually onside or offside? So in this case, where Son is offside by millimeters, how do we know that the ball has been actually released from their foot yet, or if he's just in the kicking motion, if the ball is still stuck to his foot, or if the ball's been released yet? I'm not sure if VAR has this down to an exact science, but that's something that really bothered me, and that's something that could be improved upon in the future as well. There were many other decisions that VAR had a hand in this game week. However, those were the main ones that I wanted to touch upon. Let's move now to a couple other talking points, and for the main points of this weekend, I want to talk about some of the big games that we had. First, I want to talk a little bit about the Leicester and Tottenham game, because this was such a fantastic game to watch from a neutral point of view, and it's really nice to see Leicester back up and competing for the top 4 spot again. I mean, they've only really done this one time, the time when they won the league, but I really like this Leicester team. They're young, they're exciting to watch, and I want them to continue to fight for the top 4 spot. In particular, they have a lot of exciting players to watch, a lot of creative players as well, in James Maddison, Yuri Tielemans, and it's always entertaining to watch the likes of Jamie Vardy get behind the defense. I really like the way that Leicester took the game to Tottenham in the second half. And although Tottenham did have a lot of chances on the counter-attack, the game really could have gone either way because Leicester had a lot of chances as well. Now, for me, James Maddison is the real bright spot for this squad, coming into his own at the end of last season, and now really solidifying that center attacking mid role for Leicester. Guys, please do let me know if you think James Maddison will become a regular for the England international side. I do think that he will become a regular. I think they do need somebody in that position, and I don't think Lingard will hold that spot down for a lot longer. So we'll see if James Maddison will take over that position or not. Now let's take a look at the Arsenal-Aston Villa game, and this is one I really only wanted to touch upon because of the play of Aston Villa. Now obviously Aston Villa came out pretty strong, and they came out pretty attacking in the first quarter of the game, I would say. They were rewarded with the goal from John McGinn, and then in the 41st minute, Maitland-Niles was sent off for 2 yellow cards. Now from this point forward, Aston Villa were up 1-0 at half. They were away from home, and they were up a man. And what ended up happening in the second half is that the game was very open, and they let Arsenal come back and attack them. And what I think Aston Villa's game plan should have been was not to sit back, but to try and hold and keep possession of the ball. They had the extra man, so it would have been easier to do this, but they did not. They couldn't keep possession of the ball. They kept trying to counter-attack Arsenal, and their passing ability was just not good enough. Arsenal would come back and counter on them, and they let Arsenal create chances by sitting back. I think there were not many points in the game where Aston Villa had complete control of the ball in the Arsenal third. And when you're up a man, you would expect to be able to keep the ball a little bit easier. I think that the Aston Villa game plan was all wrong, or maybe the game plan was right and the players just did not execute it properly. However, I think this is their downfall, and it led to them conceding goals that led to them ultimately losing. All credit to Arsenal, though, for coming back and showing character and being able to score the goals to win the game. And a big shout out to Matteo Guendouzi for a wonderful performance, in my opinion, at least. Now, the last main talking point from this weekend, I want to look at the Chelsea versus Liverpool game because, again, this was a very exciting game to watch from a neutral point of view. And I think things are looking up brightly for this Chelsea squad. Now, it seems almost as if Manchester United and Chelsea are in a similar situation in which they're trying to bring youth into their starting squads. Now, I do believe at this point that it looks as if Chelsea's youth has a little bit more talent than Manchester United's youth, which is why it's working a little bit better. But I also just think that at this moment, Chelsea have a better game plan in place, and I think that their midfield is a little bit more solidified than Manchester United's is, which is really allowing for their young players to be free, the likes of Tammy Abraham, Mason Mount, and even when Callum Hudson-Odoi comes back into the lineup, I think they will really make a difference in this Chelsea squad. One other talking point from this game I want to bring up is the foul that led to the free kick for Liverpool, leading to their second goal from Firmino. Now, I know this isn't like a huge moment in the game, but it did lead to the second goal. So, I mean, in my opinion, I didn't think it was a foul on Azpilicueta. I thought he was going up to head the ball, and Wijnaldum kind of ran into him. I mean, you could see it another way that he obstructed his path towards goal, but I don't think Azpilicueta should have to move out of the way in order to let Wijnaldum go by him. It's not like he moved into his path that he was going. He was already in his path, and Wijnaldum hit him and fell. So in my opinion, this wasn't really a foul. It should have been a play on, and it ultimately led to that second goal for Liverpool. So let me know what you think. Do you think it was a foul against Azpilicueta, or do you not think it was a foul? I'm not sure, but from the way that I saw it, it looked like it should have been a play on, as Azpilicueta did not mean to obstruct the path of Wijnaldum to goal. And that's it, guys. That's all from me this weekend. I'm very much looking forward to week 7 of the Premier League, and I'm hoping you guys are as well. Please let me know in the comments below if you have any suggestions for any more video ideas that I should do. I'm looking to try to do different types of content and not just weekly roundups, although I will keep the weekly roundups coming. As for now, if you like this video, please leave a like. And if you like content like this, please hit the subscribe button below. As for now, I'll see you on the next weekly roundup, and the rookie is over and out.